What's up, guys? Tom from the Airsoft Headquarters here. Welcome back. So today we have yet another KWA rifle. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, that looks familiar, but it looks a little different. Hope you explain. So, I definitely will. So this is one of KWA's X series. And now what's unique is that the X series is not currently on KWA's website, but let me explain it to you. So if you go onto their website, they currently have the AEG 2.5 and AEG 3 modular upper receiver and barrel setup. So what you could do is, if you have the Ronin Recon, that 20-inch barrel or 18-inch, you could slide that upper off, get the 10-inch modular upper, and slide that onto your Ronin Recon, and then now you have a Ronin Recon that has a 20-inch or a 10-inch rail system. So what they did is they just took basically their standard AEG 2.5 or AEG 3 lower, which I currently have one of their AEG 3 lowers, and they just slap on the 10-inch, the 15-inch, or a 20-inch barrel on that different lower. So it's basically kind of just a copy paste with a little bit of adjustment for different internals or different barrel lengths. So currently there are, if I do my math correctly, 6 total options. Wrong. But you have the AEG 2.5 lower with 3 different variable lengths of barrels, the 10-inch, 15-inch, 20-inch, or 18-inch, excuse me, and then their AEG 3 lower with a 10-inch, 15-inch, and 18-inch. So this is what we have. We have the Ronin, or not the Ronin, the X series, AEG 2.5, VM4 X-10, and then this is their RM4 X-15. I hope that made sense. It probably didn't, but whatever. This is essentially brand spanking new, and we were able to get some of these in stock. So if you just want kind of a standard KWA rifle that's a little bit more modern, that you can change the different barrel lengths out and rail lengths out for something longer or shorter even, we have the X series here. So to kind of take you through what you would get on an X series rifle, let's go through it. Tip to butt, let's go for it. So here on the modular upper, you are going to have a standard orange flash hider or mock suppressor, barrel extension, whatever you want to call it. And actually, these are actually fairly easy to remove. If you have a 1.5 millimeter Allen screw, you can go in through the bottom here, loosen that up, and it just slides right off. There's no glue on here, which is pretty cool to see. I know certain other brands are going to be a little bit heavier on that glue to make it harder to take off. Not the case with KWA. You can just take it off. It's really easy. Yeah. From there, we have the key mod rail system. This is the 10-inch. So we have key mod on the 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and then you also have it on the 245s on the lower part of the rail system. Not on the 45s on the top, and you have straight Picatinny going down the entire length of the very top of the rail, meeting with the upper receiver. Of course, with KWA rifles, they are going to have their PTS flip-up iron sights. Again, these are just PTS iron sights. They're really solid, really sturdy. You saw that I struggled with that one just a little bit. What's cool is that these are adjustable as far as day aperture or night aperture. This one, you can adjust the elevation of that front post. Really easy that you can modify those, but in most cases with airsofters, it just flips down or they come right off. They did Swiss cheese the rail system here just a little bit in order to make it as lightweight as possible. Actually, side note, picking this up, it's really, really solid. Even though this is all completely aluminum as far as the receiver construction and the barrel or the rail construction, it actually comes in at 5 pounds 13 ounces. So all of that material is built up really thick, and it is very sturdy. No wiggle room, no wobbling here. So really happy to see that. Really, really good. Going back here, other than the flip up iron sights, of course we know that KWA has their standard charging handle, so it is going to be right hand dominant where you have just that side to pull down. The imitation bolt does not hold back as you pull that charging handle all the way back, so you do need to use the imitation bolt release here, press down while pulling that charging handle back, letting it slide forward, and now the window for your hop-up adjustment is right there. And then in order to close that, you can do that, or you can hit your bolt release. And then it just slides closed, dust cover closed. The X series is going to be a standard M4, so really not a whole lot of ambidextrous materials going on here. Just your standard magazine release. The selector switch is going to be ambidextrous with the larger or longer tab on the right hand, and then on the left hand it is cut a little bit shorter, which is going to be a little easier if you do need to do any sort of selector manipulation with your right hand on there. It's not going to be annoying, but if you're also left-handed, you can still make those selector switches really easy. On the rear of the receiver, we have a left and a right hand sling plate. Very cool that they included that ambidextrous selector, even though the rifle itself isn't completely ambidextrous, which is all right. I'm right hand based, but as far as left hand operations, see if this actually fits. Nope, this is one that busted. I'm gonna have to grab a magazine then. Yeah. Just grabbed one of Brady's mags since his were closest. So, if you are right-handed, obviously magazine in, and then you have that magazine release, which is a little tough. Yeah. The receiver is just cut a little weird, or that mag well is cut a little weird. I think there's just a wearing process. And then if you are left-handed, firing a right-hand based rifle, when your magazine is empty, take the left hand back, hit that magazine release with your left thumb, and pull down and be able to swap it out. Now you're not going to do anything cool as far as right-handed people being able to do a mag drop and then swapping it in, which in my opinion is stupid anyway, since you should always practice magazine retention. Always. So then, if I was right-handed, practicing magazine retention, shoot, 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 magazine comes out, retain it, grab a new one, slides it back home, good to go. Exactly the same method that I would use if I were shooting left-handed and need to do a reload. Bam, 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 out, grab a new mag, slide that in, and good to go. Whoop. The trigger on here is just going to be a standard trigger, just boop, 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 boop. It's two pieces of copper that are making contact with each other. It's just a trigger trolley system, not a micro switch, anything fancy like that. So, just a standard KWA trigger. Going down from there on the grip, this is going to be PTS's enhanced polymer grip. These are actually one of my favorite style of grips. I am not a fan of the compact style of grips. Having this enhanced beaver tail here to add a little bit more material makes it really comfortable for me, and I like the texturing here. It's got the checkerboard on the left and right hand side, and it has the more subtle kind of Glock Gen 3 type of texturing on the front and the back. So I'm a fan of that. Going back, this is just a standard crane stock that is 6 position. Nothing really special to it. So yeah, just kind of a standard KWA basic receiver rifle. Nothing fancy as far as their QRF rifles that are going to have full ambidextrous and are going to include a couple more external features as well. This is just a basic M4, really solidly built. Internally, like I said, this is going to be their AEG 2.5 gearbox. So this is the variable velocity. And what do I mean by variable velocity? Inside the box of the KWA, there is going to be a T-shaped Allen screw that you can use to go into the back of the buffer tube, make adjustments as far as velocity. You can change them, or at least some of the other rifles that we have seen here can adjust from 340 up to 390 feet per second. Not changing springs. All you're doing is adjusting the tension of the spring before it goes through the motion of firing a BB. So, super cool that those have been implemented. And I'm thinking I'll do a different video on the AEG3, but kind of just to answer any immediate questions. The RM4, because the R stands for recoil, and this is a AEG3. So AEG3 refers to a piece of metal that sits back here inside the buffer tube and actually gives you some kinetic recoil motion as you fire it to help simulate recoil or something like that. So it actually kicks quite a bit. This is still technically a quick change spring system, so you can take that piece of metal out, and with it comes your AEG standard spring. Swap that out for a higher tension or lower tension spring, whatever you want, and then just slide it all back together. Really, really solid, really innovative from KWA, and they've got a couple more rifles coming out this year as well, which I'm looking forward to. So, this shooting and velocity check is going to be on a different video. So, let's take this over to the chrono station, and then from the chrono station, we'll take it out and we'll do kind of a range and accuracy test. How about that? But first, coffee break. All right, so quick before we get into the chrono test, one of the things I want to show you is going to be the magazine that is coming with the KWA rifles. Now, what is unique is that this is the K120C. This has an adjustable round capacity changer that can go from 30 BBs or 120 BBs. All you have to do is just take that switch that's on the bottom of the magazine, flip it towards 120 if you want 120 BBs in the magazine, or just swap it down to 30 if you just want 30 BBs, and it's only going to load that number. What is also unique is that this magazine has a follower, so you are going to be able to fire all 30 BBs or all 30 or all 120. Now, I know what you're thinking. For the guys that have real firearms, you can actually use this as a training tool, especially with the AEG3 models that are going to have a recoil system. Swap this to 30 rounds, and the magazines actually have a cutoff switch that once the magazine is empty are going to prevent the gun from firing. And that's going to mean hitting the bolt release or loading a new magazine with that bolt release. So let me show you. And just so there's a baseline of understanding, I'm going to be firing it with a 7.4 lithium ion, and I can't remember the last time I charged it, so 7.4 volts. iPro. See, now the magazine is empty, gun will not fire, whether it's in full auto, semi, or safe, obviously. So, dropping that magazine, getting a fresh mag, hitting that bolt release, and then you're back at it. So then you can press the bolt release outwards so that you would be catching the bolt, fire it once, and that's going to lock that mechanism to the rear, so then it's not going to fire at all. So you gotta hit that bolt release forward, and now you're able to fire again. Which is one of the really cool things I wanted to show you about the KWA rifle before we actually get into the chrono test. So, chrono. All right, so we have a maximum of 398, minimum of 388, average of 394. So a 10 FPS difference at that 390 feet per second average, which is actually really, really good as far as the spread for an AEG. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the spring tension to be a lower tension or higher tension, whatever one this ends up being. And I'll show you that here in just a sec. All right, so in order to change the velocity on some of these guys, make sure you pull that out. Of course, you're going to take your crane stock off using a long Phillips screwdriver. You're going to take the screw out that sits at the base of the buffer tube here. Take that out, and that will allow you to slide the buffer tube off and get access to this tool right here. Of course, you don't need to completely do all of this. As long as you take this screw out, you can use the longer T-shaped Allen and make those adjustments. I just like to do it like this, so I can show you that if you were to push this in, rotate this out, this is the recoil spring that is what is adjusting the AEG spring that sits inside of that gearbox. So just a standard spring. So we don't need to change that at all. Instead, what we would be doing is changing the neck of this. And it actually looks like 390 was the lowest velocity. It seems like this spring was a slightly higher tension. So if we pop this in and rotate that back into place like that, reattach buffer tube, I suspect we're actually going to get a higher velocity and not a lower. But that's okay. We actually do have different tension springs here if you guys do want to take this to a indoor velocity. Make sure I still got plenty of BBs. All right, plug the battery in, and then let's go chrono this. So as you can probably hear, that turnaround or that reaction of the rifle was much slower, considering we did put some more tension within that gear set. As we can see, it also jumped up that velocity to 449 as the max, 434 as the minimum, and an average of 442. So here in the US, that is going to be a little bit hot as far as a infantry-based rifle. What would probably need to happen is this spring would need to get changed for something else internally in order to make sure that it was outdoor legal as far as the maximum velocity. But this is the spring that it comes with. I don't know. That's just what came from KWA's factory. We're going to continue to play with it. All right, we got 25 feet aiming for the head. Stand on this corner. Excuse the mess over on this side here. I'm going to shoot. Right hand. Well, helps if I have a mag. Shooting, 2 5s. All right, good to go. All right, 10 shots to the head. We're gonna kick it out to 50 feet, aim for the body. Sitting back here at 100 feet. Total shots. And now we've got that out at 100 feet. Gonna be sitting back here, trying to tag it best I can. I've noticed that irons are sitting a little low, so I'm impacting low. So I'm gonna be aiming for the head, supported, trying to get some body shots. Okay, so now the hop actually wanted to start engaging, so break that down just a little bit. it's still curving up. I think you can see that the top flap is moving. I'm aiming for the head. There we go. All right, kind of just peppered it at 100 feet. We'll see what that turns out to be. All right, so it's a new day, new me, that type of bullshit. Anyway, got really late last night and wasn't able to stay and continue the video. However, next morning, here we go with the impact results. So, going over in the video, I'm just gonna go over everything with you again. At 25 feet, I was aiming for the white circle here. Now, these two hits were not at that 20-foot mark. Instead, all of those shots landed here. So all of those BBs from iron sights were impacting lower, meaning there was no hop. But we can look at the amount of distance here compared to where the point of aim was here and where the BBs were impacting at 25 feet. Double the distance. So that means that at this point there was some hop being added. Now, I did note that even though there was zero hop and there was some hop, at some point there was a point where I took a unjamming rod or a cleaning rod, took a piece of paper towel, jammed it down the inner barrel, swabbed it a little bit, pulled it back out, and I noticed there was quite a bit of oil inside of that inner barrel, as well as on that bucking. So this is probably from the oil on the bucking not catching on the BB hard enough in order to give it any sort of backspin. These here, however, got to a point where some of that oil started to come off of that bucking so that there was some pressure being added here. So at 50 feet, that's still a pretty good sized grouping using just iron sights. And then obviously out at 100 feet, we did get to see some major issues of too much hop up. So all of that remaining oil that was inside of that hop up unit cleared out pretty well to where the BBs were just flying up somewhere. I couldn't even see where they were going. But in the video, you did hear cardboard impact, cardboard impact, cardboard impact, and then a wall strike. And then a continual wall strike. It was getting really dark. I wasn't able to see where the BBs were going. So despite aiming somewhere for the body, got to see two impacts here, impact on the left here, several on the right, as well as on the cardboard. And because of all of that hop, there was a lot of BBs that were impacting along the top here. So even though aiming for center mass-ish, BBs were just coming, scooping up, and hitting the top of this cardboard lid here and smacking it backwards. So overall, as long as you clean out that inner barrel, clean out the hop-up unit, making sure that the bucking is dry, not having that oil on there, then you're going to get good, consistent shots. On that 100-yard test, or 100-foot test, excuse me, we're going to call that shooter error on my end as far as not being able to properly prepare myself and not getting proper results. So, at 25 feet, good grouping. At 50 feet, good grouping. At 100 feet, my bad. Overall, I think it was really good results. Final thoughts are the KWA X Series is a solid rifle system. It's got a really awesome build to it. It feels comfortable. It's heavy, but not too heavy to where it's uncomfortable. It's unmaneuverable. It feels like it's a solid rifle. Like you're not gonna have any sort of issues swinging around, bumping it into anything, holding it and playing around with it. It wasn't really a concern of mine to be careful with it, just because in feeling it, it felt like even if I were to drop it, bump into something, maybe land on it with my body, I felt comfortable that the body wasn't going to break or shatter if anything did happen to it. Another thing being is one of the issues being that high velocity point, that is definitely going to be a turnoff. Having the lowest velocity at 380 feet per second and the highest at 440 really is not playable at most airsoft fields. I mean, you could keep it at the lower end at 380 and play for outdoors, but I think the whole reason of having the AEG 2.5 is having the flexibility of being able to play both indoors and outdoors using the one rifle platform without having to change any of the internals. I know with some rifles, such as, so with the MP5 here, having it stock at 380 feet per second and then changing that internal spring down to a 300 FPS spring, using 11.1s did create an overcycling effect on semi-automatic. Meaning, with that higher voltage and that lower tension spring combined, I was actually getting a 2 to 3 round burst on semi-automatic, which is not a good thing. It is not a feature, and it's not really a flaw. All it is just too high voltage, spinning the motor with such a high speed and not having enough spring tension in order to get things to move properly, such as there needs to be tension behind the gear movement, otherwise it's just going to overcycle, right? You want semi-automatic to be just semi-automatic, otherwise the possibility of parts breaking internally skyrockets immensely. And that won't be a manufacturer defect, that will be a user error. So, not something I wanted, so just dropping down to a 7.4 volt LiPo. While using that lower tension spring, I still get a really decent rate of fire and a really good trigger response, which is what you're going to want to opt for. However, with the KWA X series, being able to use such as a 11.1 at 340 feet per second and then being able to crank that up to 390 feet per second is that ideal window of where you want your velocity while also having a good battery in order to play effectively with that range of velocity. You know what I'm saying? Maybe not. Maybe I'm just rambling on. Anyway, I like the X series, despite its flaws. There are aftermarket fixes. So, if you do want to check the X series rifles out, we have them here at the Airsoft Headquarters. If I do run out, I do plan on restocking with KWA somewhat fairly soon. So we will have those back in. Keep an eye on any other videos, such as featuring the Avalons or the G&G G2 series. Those are going to be their own independent videos, but ultimately I want to do a fourth and final video where I do a compare contrast of all three of those, since all three seem to be that higher tier, higher performance type of good to go out of the box rifles, and I want to give them all a good compare and contrast. It's like a really weird like power triangle here in the store having those three available, so it's kind of cool just to be able to have that. Anyway, that's all for me. You guys take care, stay safe. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.